Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our regular council meeting for September 3rd, 7:16. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we can all please remain standing for a moment of silence for our first responders and military members, please. Thank you. May be seated. Can we have roll call, please?
Roll call, Councilmember Wallace, not here. Councilmember Soto?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Semmer? Present. Mayor Moran?
Present.
For the record, Councilmember Roth and Councilmember Wallace are not in attendance.
Thank you. Closed session announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was no reportable action taken in closed session.
Thank you. Next, we have, are there any changes to the agenda?
I am sorry, there was a reportable action taken on the last item. We were authorized to initiate litigation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
on the consent item number 6, due to conflict of interest being within a certain distance of the project, I would request that we pull this item for another date when we have a quorum.
We'll go ahead and table that for our next meeting in 2 weeks. Yes, in 2 weeks. Okay?
Mayor, there's item 1. If we can table item 1, since the presenter, Nathan Alonso, is unable to attend.
All right, thank you. So we're going to continue that to a future
PG
date.
update.
Item number 1, which is the awards and presentations and proclamations. So that's going to be continued to a future date. Is there any other changes to the agenda, Council? Seeing none, moving forward. Next, we have citizen comments. This section of the agenda allows members of the public to address the City Council on any item not on the agenda. Members of the public, when recognized by a mayor, should come forward to the lectern and identify themselves. Comments are normally limited to 3 minutes. In accordance with the state open meeting laws, no action will be taken by the City Council this evening. Is there any citizen comments on the phone on any items not on the agenda?
Hi, my name is Ravine Mendoza. I do have one item. Okay. I received a call today asking about our fire station. And we had one of our citizens who needed the fire department to respond, or basically an ambulance. And by the time they called, a lady from Belico was dispatched, which could not handle the situation. So someone from Belico had to come. So just kind of wondering where we're at with the fire station.
We'll have that city manager's office follow up with you. Is that okay? Thank you.
Hi, Supervisor Espinoza. Just a comment. I'm not going to talk for the fire department, but as far as I know, the contract with City of Livingston is till October 1st. So all the services should be working in cooperation with the City of Livingston, as far as I know. Under my citizens' comments, I was going to say that when I was walking and I went to get some water, then I went to the restaurant to get something. Los amigos over there, and they addressed to me that they were selling food outside. As a restaurant, I think that they thought they were able to sell food outside, but then the city came and, or code enforcement, and stopped them. But in my opinion, just my opinion, I think that restaurants should be able to sell outside. It's common, all over California, downtowns, for them to use the same business license and to sell food outside, tables or chairs or whatever, or if they want to put a canopy, as long as it's approved by the city, obviously, for and the county for health-wise. But they said that the city was charging them $60 for the permit to sell outside, and then they had to pay another $800 or plus. So to me, that's unconscionable when that restaurant has been, folding on again, off again. So we're trying to encourage business in this community. So, like I said, just in my mind, personal mind, I think that we should try to be helping businesses in the future. So I just want to address that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional comments, citizen comments in the chamber?
Hi, Renee again. I just wanted to kind of add on to Rico's comment there. When a restaurant sells food outside, I'm sure that there are additional fees that are required because of the health inspection that would have to be done outside. You have outdoor limits. OSHA just passed new ruling on even indoors can't be over 85 degrees or you can't be out there. And 85, 95 degrees, you can't have people out there. So if some of that fee of the $800 or that is continuing code enforcement or whatever, if they would just be broken down to the restaurant owner, I want to encourage them also, but I don't want anybody hurt or any other liabilities out there. If it could maybe just be explained, then I'm sure that everybody would understand. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, since we had Ms. Renee speak 2 times, I will open it up again for anybody else in the chamber to speak. If there's any citizen comments on any items not on the agenda. Seeing none, I will open it to anyone on the phone. Is there anyone on the phone with citizen comments? Hearing none, I'm closing the citizen comments at 7:23. Next, we have announcements and reports. Supervisor Rodrigo Espinosa for announcements and reports.
Good evening, Council, again. My first comment is, with the county or the Lao Mang Committee of Merced County had an event, a boat racing event in the Lake Yosemite in Merced, and I think it turned out to be a great event. It was huge. It's estimated 4,000 or 5,000 people. Even though our first race on behalf of the county was a rock and roll team, we placed 3rd in our division. So it was just a great family, and diverse, and appreciative of the Lao and Hmong community. So it was just with music, festivities, and their cultural event and that they had. So I encourage the whole county to, which is very diverse, to for next year. I encourage them to also advertise more, so that way they can get more residents from all around the county. So hopefully next year the city and staff can have a boat, a team or 2 to be on it over there. So looking forward to that. Number 2, and we had a visit from the Consulate General Zhang of San Francisco, which is for China. And so they called me. I didn't know that the county had a sister city. They call it Friendship City, but it's the same thing, Sister City, Friendship City, of Zillion, China. And so they came to visit, and they told us back in 2001, I guess Supervisor Rivero had signed the Sister City, Friendship City with the city of Zillion, and which all the board did not know we had a sister city. And so they visited us, and then they explained that Zillion and China in general, with the President Xi, is inviting 50,000 kids across the United States to visit, to educate themselves, friendship, and study abroad. And the country will pay all room and board except for the air travel. Air travel, the student will pay for that, but everything else, including food, China will pay. So that's encourage participation, friendship, and just like what Sister City International is about. So hopefully, up to date, I think there's about 7,000 to 9,000 kids across America that already have done that. And then after that, we went to do a tour of UC Merced. The chancellor wasn't available, but we met with the vice chancellor, and they expressed that same invitation to the UC Merced students as well. So hopefully that will go well. And also last week they had the Winton Park grand reopening, which the county got $3.7 million, and they did a total remodel of the Winton Park, which expressly needed it. And so they got ball fields, picnic shelters, and sidewalks and walkways around the Winton Park. So, if you have a chance, stop by in Winton and, walk that park. On roads, I had a meeting with Nathan Bray, the Public Works Director, last week. Also in Express about Bird Road. The public law enforcement used that for the firing range. And so I've been pushing it for years, and I told them that it's been very bad shape. They thought that half of the road was city and half the road was county. I go, no, the county limit is Olive, not Bird Road. So all the road belongs to the county, so we should be fixing it. And they expressed concerns about West Side.
Supervisor Espinoza?
Correct.
You said they're going to fix the Bird Road this fiscal year?
Hopefully. He's trying to get there. And also West Side Boulevard, I've been getting complaints about. I don't know if you noticed, but they also fixed, what's it called, White Crane Road, just past Rose. I think there's White Crane Road. That was I think that was one of the worst roads in the county, and so they fixed it a few months ago. I also had a chance to, last Friday, to give out some certificates to 3 graduates of the drug treatment court held by the Honorable Judge Paul Lowe, which gives out the last Friday of the month. And if you go through the treatment for about a year or more, they reduce the fines, whatever fines they have, through the legal process. And so, as long as they clean up and sober up, and so they stay in the program. And also, we also had a high-speed rail update today during our board meeting. And so, as far as we know, about 500 miles of the project for the high-speed rail has already been passed the environmental, but the 119 miles from Bakersfield to Merced should be done by and gotten started by 2030. So hopefully we'll get that done. And of course that's going to tag in with Ace Train and the San Joaquin's that's going to dead end in the city of Merced, and then of course the city of Merced will have a nice big station there as well. So we're all looking for that. And I already mentioned about the restaurant, so that's all I have. Any questions from the council or the public?
Council, any questions? Question. And I think I saw that this was the first year that for the Hmong Festival this is the first time they have the boat race competition. And so hopefully, like you mentioned, and it's something that they do every year, and hopefully next year the city of Livingston can participate. Just wondering, like those votes are provided by
the Lao community.
By the Lao community?
Yeah, there was 3 or 4. So obviously, it's three boats race at the same time.
Oh, okay.
And then the first you don't race against. Well, I guess you race against everybody, but it goes by time.
Time.
So our first race was our best, and minute 22 for the distance. And so for the second race, that's the one we went under and our boat capsized. And so
that was going to be my next question. Who provides the life jackets, just to make sure?
They do as well.
They do?
Yeah, they do as well.
Just make sure you tie them up like really tight next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So anyway, we just had a lot of fun.
A lot of fun.
And they were pull us out, and so it was fun. So you have a good time. It's a long day, so hey, just bring your own food. Or there's plenty of food there and waters as well. So
All right,
okay,
sounds good.
Thank you very much.
I just have one question, please.
Yes, go ahead.
I know earlier you stated that we're in constant conversations in regards to the fire station. How active and are you participating in those processes with with the county CEO?
Well, he gives us updates to all the board, and I know that there was a resident that called me regarding the concerns about the city as well, and he expressed that hopefully we're going to try to extend the deadline to the end of the year. Because I told him, I told our CEO, well, if the county is expecting the residents of the cities and the county residents to vote for the half-cent sales tax, we were encouraged for them to extend it all the way to December. But of course, the board would have to vote on that. So obviously, I try to get as many updates as I can.
So does that include our station 96, or which stations are you speaking on extending? Does it include all of us?
All of them, especially 96.
Especially 96?
Yes. Thank you.
Next, we have city staff announcements and reports. Do we have anybody? No one?
Not tonight, Mayor.
All right, thank you. City manager and announcements and reports?
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have council members' announcements and reports. Councilmember Soto?
Nothing tonight.
Nothing.
Okay. Just a couple of things I just wanted to report. This weekend, I had a chance, and I wanted to go and visit the Garlic Festival in Los Baños. And I didn't get a chance to attend the Garlic Festival when it was in Gilroy, and never made it. And so now that we're going to bring it to Los Baños, so I was out there, I think it was on Sunday. It wasn't very well attended. I don't know what it was like on Friday or Saturday. I really thought it was going to be a lot more people, but it was probably a long weekend, a lot of things going on. But anyways, and it just reminded me again of the great work that our recreation department does with our annual Sweet Potato Festival, and just small city, small town, small department, everything that they're able to do. But it was interesting being there. And then on Friday, I was invited to a mayor's roundtable by the office by Congressman Duarte. So it was a very interesting meeting. It was supposed to be an hour and a half. It lasted like almost 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours. But hopefully we get to have more of those mayor roundtables more in the valley. I think it's important, and besides the mayors in Merced County, I think it's also important to be able to get to know others in our surrounding areas, because we might learn a few things from them too as well. So it was very interesting. I just wanted to report that, and that's it for the moment. Next, we have the consent agenda. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine or non-controversial and will be enacted by one vote unless separate action is requested by a member of the public, the city manager, or city council member. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the public, city council, or city manager request that specific items be removed. Public comment on consent agenda items shall be limited to 3 minutes per person, regardless of the number of items contained within the consent agenda. So In the consent agenda, we have items 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Does council have any questions or motions for items on the consent agenda?
I do.
Yes, go ahead.
If, instead of, item number 4, if that could be verbally explained to the public instead of us just passing it through. I also have questions on item number 12.
So are you asking to have item number 4 pulled from consent agenda?
If it could just be explained further, if it has to be pulled, to have an explanation behind it so that the public is aware that this is something that we've done, it just was not.
And then you have a question on item
Item number
12.
12.
Okay, so item number 4 is consideration of a resolution amending the city conflict of interest code and accepting the biennial notice. Staff recommendation, approve resolution and accept biennial notice. Would there be something for legal or city manager? I'm not sure who wants to take it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. For the benefit of the public, the City Council is very concerned about making sure that it doesn't have conflicts of interest. As part of that process, they go through a regular update to look at not only the City Council, but also the various members of city staff to make sure that there's reporting at all appropriate levels. And that reporting is actually done through what's called a Form 700 to the Fair Political Practices Commission, and they become public records so that the public can see that there's transparency. So this item tonight really sets forth for the public that the City Council is not only just adopting something and letting it sit in a back room. It's not the case. They're updating it and refreshing it as needed to make sure that it's current and ongoing. So the item before the council tonight is a consideration of a resolution that basically updates the city's conflict of interest and reporting code. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, and then moving on to question on item 12. Item 12, it's consideration of a resolution approving a facility fee waiver reimbursement request from Pacific Coast Khalsa D1 Society Sikh Temple, Inc. for the use of city facilities totaling $320. Staff recommendation, approve resolution. And the question is?
So going through the staff report, I noticed that there were a few inconsistencies. I know in the past that this item, similar items have come before this council in open session. So my first question was, why is it here in the consent agenda? In reviewing some of it, I have some questions, because I do see that there are some items that weren't fully met for this particular group, and that the timelines aren't consistent with the process that most nonprofits need to go through before they're move forward to the council.
I'll provide a little bit of background on this one. Originally, the applicant came in as an individual, not representing a nonprofit. The policy currently allows nonprofits to have fees waived, but not individuals. We reached out to the group asking them if there was an eligible nonprofit that they had so that we could process a reimbursement, and that's essentially what we did. So it originally came in as an individual. We reached out to the individual, asked if they had a valid nonprofit, and we worked them. So that's why it's coming a little bit late and not usually in the time frame that we're accustomed to. I know that Happy worked directly with the applicant based on my direction so that we could be hospitable and be welcoming to the group. If there's any other information that Happy has, I'm sure he could ask or answer any questions that you may have, Councilmember.
So, I'm just not sure if this might set a precedent for other nonprofits in the community, because I know that being on a nonprofit, some of the process that we had to follow was very strict, and we were held to that so that make it fair for everybody. Because if this gets approved, knowing that some of the steps were not taken, and I don't see that even their nonprofit status was active, because it does require in the part of the steps is that it be a current nonprofit, and I think the document they provided to us is over. Let's see. I don't know. Sorry. Was last updated 2013. So what I'm saying is that if we set this as a precedent that nonprofits can come in after the fact and after the event has already happened. I remember this event being held last year, so if they were told and they knew of the process already, why was it not an expectation for the next year when they held the event?
Happy, please, if you got any other information, come up. I do know that there has not been the same people that are asking or reserving for these items. So one of the things that we talked about internally was, we know that this is going to happen. It may not be the same people that are coming up to the front counter asking for these things. One of the things that I've directed the staff to do is on the front side, ask if they're representing a nonprofit on the front side, so that if they are representing a nonprofit, we're asking the questions to get that on the front side versus having to do this reimbursement in the future. So it is something that we're doing on our process side to make sure that we're asking the questions on the front side versus having this come through, an individual paying for it, and then us finding out that it was really, they were representing a nonprofit. So that's something that we're doing on our process side to be a little bit asking more questions on the front side versus just processing applications that come through.
Again, I just want to reiterate that if we start approving these things, because if they were given the application to begin with, everyone's, whether it's an individual or nonprofit group, they're given the same application packet to fill out. So when it came back the first time, and the individual realized that they could be reimbursed as a nonprofit, now we're going back to this process. I mean, we had nothing against the groups, I'm just speaking in general. If groups come before this council, want a fee waiver, they need to go through the same steps as everybody else because they do receive the same information as an individual, because that's what the packet determines, all the pages in that, what class they come in as when they want to rent a park. They're given the same packet. That's just my issue here, is that if we say yes to this, reimburse a group because they're getting this after the fact, not following the same protocols that all the other nonprofits have to do in order to get their events waived by the city.
Happy, correct me if I'm wrong, so could you come up? I believe it was a different individual that came in that requested this versus who did it previously. So there may have been some inconsistency with the people that previously did it. Am I
Yes,
understanding
so
that correctly?
So the person that came in this year was a female, which is part of the committee, but the person that did it last year was a president, and he did follow the, I guess, the rules or the guidelines from last year, because last year they did get the, I guess, waiver approved.
So I think I'm understanding you to say, Happy, that a new person came in, didn't know the process or the steps that needed to be submitted, and so we had to walk the nonprofit through on what was required for them. Is that
Yes.
correct?
And this took place a day before the event, 2 days before the event, the walkthrough of the process?
Yes, as I was directed by Christopher, I did reach out to the person that did it last year to bring in these paperwork that needed for this fee waiver.
And the
But the
paperwork,
actual individual came in prior to rent the park.
Correct.
The lady that came and did it.
So at this time, I will go, well, so since, should I go out for public comment on this separate item before we consider the consent agenda as one?
Yes, you can go out on this as a separate item because it has been polled and a vote can be taken. And because this is a resolution, it requires 3 affirmative votes in order to pass.
Okay, so at this time, I'm going to hold on the consent agenda, so I'm going to, and then I'll go back to it as one. So in regards to this item, since we had ample conversations, I will go out for public comment. Is there any public comment or questions on the phone? See, hearing none, I'm going to bring it to the chamber. Is there any public comment in regards to this item specific? Seeing none, I'm bringing it to the chamber at 7:48. Council, is there comments, questions?
Motion to approve the consent?
So we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Mayor, we didn't open the public comment for all items.
So
The
I'm
consent.
I'm doing this separately by itself.
Okay.
So we pulled
Oh,
it.
so you're
Yeah,
doing
doing
item 12.
12, yes, and then I'm going to go back to consent as one. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? I'll go ahead and second the motion. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Soto?
this is for item 12, correct?
Yes.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra?
Yes.
Mayor Moran?
Yes.
Motion fails by a vote of 2-1.
Okay, so at this time, I'm going back to the consent agenda items, including item 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Is there a motion on the floor for the consent agenda items? Let me go out for public comment first. Is there any citizen comments on the phone in regards to the consent agenda items? Hearing none, coming back to the chamber at 7:50. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda items? Seeing none, bringing it back to the dais at 7:50. Council?
Motion to approve?
Second, roll call.
Councilmember Soto?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra? Yes. Mayor Moran?
Yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 3-0.
Thank you. Next, we have discussion and potential action items. Item number 13, discussion and direction regarding over-the-counter building permit applications subject to the City of Livingston's current water supply conditions. Mr. Chavarria?
Good evening, Council. Staff report you have before you is a discussion direction item. As indicated in the staff report, we made reference to the water system capacity evaluation performed by our city engineer and the equipment evaluation assessment performed by Public Works. City staff is seeking council direction on their preference for addressing the lack of available water for over-the-counter building permit applications. Staff has also provided two possible options for council's consideration. Option one, development of an ad hoc committee comprised of staff that would make recommendations to the building official based on water demands for projects on a case-by-case basis. Option two, development of a water permit allocation system that would issue permits based on water system capacity availability. Now, I'll ask Shannon if he can provide a bit more context for council for options 1 and 2. And Shannon, if you could also provide a little more context on the what the permit process looks like for our public.
Thank you so much, Anthony. For the benefit of the public, there are various types of permits that the city issues. And can be broadly broken down into two categories. You have what are called discretionary permits. Those are typically your conditional use permits or rezones or general plan amendments or maybe site plans. And then you have what are called your more ministerial permits. And ministerial permits include building permits. And one way to think of a ministerial permit is that in most cases, it's kind of like getting a driver's license. If you meet the basic requirements, the permit issues. And so if you meet the basic requirements for a building permit, generally that building permit will issue. There are some exceptions. For example, if you try to put up a 26-story skyscraper, courts have said that's not a building permit issue. You really need to go through another process. So what does that mean for us today on our options? Well, there's not a mechanism in a ministerial process to say, well, hey, we need to have an additional review process as to whether or not to approve a building permit. However, there is an option where the building permit can be denied or conditioned if there are written findings backed by a preponderance of the evidence that this particular project will have a specific adverse impact on public safety and welfare. That under those conditions, for example, if you don't have enough water, that can be an impact on public safety because water affects our ability to provide fire services, drinking water, and maintaining public health and safety. So as part of the building permit process, it is an option for the city council, if it's so inclined, to appoint an ad hoc committee. And that ad hoc committee would basically provide recommendations to the building official saying, based on the circumstances we have, here are specific adverse conditions that exist that affect public health and safety, and assist the building official with the preparation of the written findings in order to deny the permit. So that's one option. There are some ways to address that process. For example, it is an option for the city council if we are at a water condition where there is not enough water to issue building permits at this time. It is possible for the city council to engage in a denial of the permits without prejudice and then refund certain processing fees if they're so inclined. There are also options where we can help prioritize certain items, but there's a limit to that because under state law, there is a precedence for housing because there is a housing shortage statewide. So if there are specific concerns about the lack of water for one building permit, they would need to apply to all building permits. Because if there's a citywide lack of water and it's not just local, that would be something that would be universal. Other than the building permit, the recommendation with an ad hoc committee to assist the building official drafting written findings as necessary and moving forward on these ministerial permits, it is also possible to do something where you have an allocation system. And I don't want to use the word lottery, but in some ways, it's kind of like a lottery. Now, if the council's interested in exploring this option, we would need to do additional research, but some jurisdictions where there's a lot of development, such as on the coast, where everybody wants to live, where it's the weather's nice and the view's great, there's only so many places on the coast where there's enough water for these houses. And so what the Coastal Commission will do is everybody will get together and they basically have a lottery. They say, we have X amount of water for you, and then you draw a lottery of everybody who's coming on, so everybody has the same opportunity in order to get a development permit in order to move forward. Some jurisdictions may be more familiar with like a cannabis license or permit where you have a cap about so many licenses within a jurisdiction. So for your options tonight, the two options that Anthony are bringing up are, one, do you want to do an ad hoc committee to help out the building official to make the determinations on these building permits with regards to our current water status? Or two, do you want to explore an allocation system, a lottery as it were, to see if that's even an option at this particular point? I hope I got everything, Anthony. I'm available for any questions.
Yeah, I think, Shannon, if you could maybe touch on instances or scenarios on where, say, an ad hoc committee would review permits that may be acceptable, such as conservation efforts.
Yeah, thank you. That is a very good point. So one of the things an ad hoc committee could do is they could help out the building official to look at particular circumstances. So if the general rule is, I'm just talking hypothetically, if you don't have any water for everybody, and there's not enough water to use even one more building permit, then you would generally be denying them. But what if somebody comes in that wants to remodel an apartment and put in low-flow faucets and low-flow toilets and maybe landscaping that uses less water? Those can result in a positive savings to the city of water and will have less of an impact. So one of the things that the city could do is they could do an equivalency. So if an applicant came in and said, I'm using this much water now, but with my remodel, I'll be using less water, the ad hoc committee would be able to assist the building official saying, yes, we've looked over this evidence and documents. We believe that is less, and there's going to be a water savings as a result of issuance of this particular building permit, and they can make that recommendation to the building official.
Great, thank you, Shannon.
Even with, so that was option one, correct?
He
So
covered.
even with that option one, if they are building in a water savings mechanism, that, is this an either or type of thing? Because if they're providing a water saving mechanism, that may open up a new developer to come in because we're saving water. In that water savings, we can allocate this amount of gallons to somebody else.
Perhaps I could jump in. Usually your total water savings from a remodel project or something like that is in percentages. Let's say you save 20% as a result of switching to low water. So if you had, I'm just randomly speaking, a 4-unit apartment, and you're saving 20% on that, that opens up, at best, 3/4 of a unit. That's still not a full unit for replacement. The additional thing that you would need to look at is either accumulate enough so that you ended up with extra, or you also have to overcome any deficits that you may currently have. So one thing is our water wells are kind of like cars. You know when you buy a car and they give you the miles per gallon that you're going to get, and it seems so wonderful, and you're so excited because finally you're going to be saving gas money? Well, fast forward, until you've got 150,000 miles on it and you're not getting the same gas mileage. So that's kind of where we are with our wells. So they're continuing to drop. And even though the city's making some tremendous efforts to bring its other well or new wells online at 8A, currently we're still in a depreciating condition. So even if you have applications that come in that result in a savings, that savings is probably eventually going to be consumed by your loss of miles per gallon on your wells. So that would be something that staff would have to assess on a regular basis before it became available for additional projects.
So I have a question. If I understand this correctly, the ad hoc committee would make recommendations to the building official and then council would not have a saying in it, like in comparison to, like, for instance, the Recreation Commission makes recommendations to the council and then council makes a final decision. So this would be different.
Anthony, do you mind if I take this one?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to step on your shoes. So yes, you are correct, Mayor. The reason is for building permits, there is not a legal mechanism for the city council to review them. So you may see park recommendations, you may see UP, you may see variances, but a building permit is ministerial. And because it's ministerial 99% of the time, that means it's check the box. There's no discretion to grant or deny. You can't pick or choose. It's either issue or there must be a written basis and findings as to why issuance can occur. So it's really an all or nothing proposition when it comes to water, whether or not you're issuing building permits. Because if you're short as to everyone. And if you have capacity, then you have to issue if you have capacity.
And then with the, I think the other option, the lottery system, even within the lottery system, if that was the case, let's say, okay, three projects get awarded, even those projects would potentially have to be, there would have to be language like, based on water system capacity availability. So let's say, somebody comes in today, 2 years on the road, they're like, okay, we're ready to build, but then that's when the city gets to say, well, based on the language in your paperwork, we would need to have to certify that we have available capacity, and if we don't, then potentially we have to look at or consider refunding some of the developer costs?
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. So your question is in essence, how do we let the developers know so they're not surprised? And how do we protect the city's interests knowing already that we're short of water? And so one way is, as you pointed out, and that is to condition our entitlements, any CUPs, variances, or anything else, right off the bat, letting them know that we're short of water. And that, in fact, under CEQA, you can put in mitigation measures as well. Technically, we can do the same for building permit if we're short of water. Now, if we're short of water and we're doing a lottery system, and again, I recommend more research on how that would exactly work. In theory, you would say to them, yes, we can develop your project. Yes, yes, we can process your development of your project, and we can get you your entitlements all lined up. But at some point, there needs to be water. You can't make water out of stone. And when water comes available, we will do a lottery system where we basically draw a name out of the hat based on the available water. The problem with that approach is that houses use different amount of water than commercial, which uses different amount of water than industrial. So you could have a commercial user, a typical household uses about 1 acre-foot per year. So an industrial user could use many multiples of acre-feet per year, and a commercial user could use 4, or sometimes even less. Like, for example, Daryl's mini storage or something does not use very much water. One of the ways that you could do that is if you only have 6 acre-feet available, is you pull the first person out of the hat, and if it happens to be a commercial use that says, hey, 4 acre-feet, well, then you've already used 4 acre-feet, and then if you pull out a residence and they've used 1 acre-foot, then you only have 1 left. So if you pick up another commercial and it's got 5 acre-feet, you go to the next one. But there would be a process. Again, we're trying to, Anthony is trying to explore options to see initially which way the council wants to go. An allocation system, again, we would need to research exactly how that would work within the city. There are some limitations out there we would need to look into. But if the council is interested in that as an option, we can certainly use the resources to do that. Otherwise, the council can either choose to set up an ad hoc committee with regards to the recommendations, or it can leave the process in place at this time and to the discretion of staff, i.e. not appoint an ad hoc committee.
So 2 more questions that keep on coming up. Well, one of them is officially who would be able to be part of that, if council decides to go with the ad hoc committee, other than 2 council members potentially, who else would be eligible? Would that be?
Thank you. So it's whoever the city council decides to appoint to the ad hoc committee. So the ad hoc committee, I would recommend two council members at most. You obviously don't want to have more than 2 council members because you have additional requirements. You could also include somebody from Public Works or somebody else that may have expertise and knowledge on the background. But the role of the ad hoc committee would be to assist the building official, because currently there's not a mechanism for the ad hoc committee to give orders to the building official on how the building official is going to issue his job. However, the ad hoc committee can help out the building official with regards to written findings and a basis for this. And if there are city council members that are included on the ad hoc committee, they would obviously be in the loop as to what is going on and why we have such an acute water shortage at this time.
And then the other question that occurs to me is, what if, let's say that there comes in a developer and is like, I want to develop, I don't know, commercial or residential, and right off the bat they say, you know what, but I will include, without having to be requested from me, I'll include drilling a well that will support and provide water for my development, and potentially be some water left over to provide additional water to the city. What would happen in that case if that case came up?
Well, there are certain, and I'll leave Anthony for some of this, but there are certain legal restrictions on private parties and even public agencies from being able just to drill their own wells and use it. Because what we have found is in circumstances like that, you have everything from naturally attenuating arsenic, you have water levels that may not, or water compliance levels that may not be in compliance with state law. If you connect them to the city system, you have to have the appropriate backflow preventer devices and contamination issues that go across. And if you have a standalone system, what it does is it basically starts to create suck the water. It's like additional straw in a bottle. It starts to draw water from the city's wells around it. What may be an option, and Anthony may want to jump in here as well, is you can technically say to a developer, or a developer can come in and say, well, hey, I'd like to do this development, and I'll even add a well for the city. It won't be my well, it'll be a city well. It'll be built to city specifications. We have a dream project that's coming in. Sure, 99% of it will be for my, for my whatever, but assuming it meets our urban water management plan, that's a perfect scenario. You have the developer developing it, putting it together, the water usage is there, provides additional water for us, the city doesn't have to pay for it or only for excess capacity. The problem is the development would not be able to actually develop and get their occupancy permits until the well came online and was certified for the amount necessary to provide water to that development.
And built to city standards, of course,
Yeah,
and deeded over to the city.
Mr. Mayor, I believe the city has done it in the past for certain projects where the water well was part of the conditional permit. And basically, they built the wells, the city specs. Once they get it certified, that's when they can move. We have done this in the past. And usually, they will use their capacity, whatever their need is. Anything beyond that, they will either get credit for excess capacity. It's usually something like that is worked out. They will get through their fees or whatever, they get credit for that. Same thing as if they were to lay out a sewer line and their project requires 2-inch line, and they said, you know what? It says, our plan is to run bigger lines, they'll run a 4-inch or 6-inch. They would get a credit for the excess capacity. That is a normal procedure we've done in the past.
So at this time, I will go out for public comment. Is there a public comment on the phone in regards to this item? Item number 18, sorry, 13. Forgot my glasses for a minute there. Here and now, coming back to the chamber, is there any public comment in the chamber in regards to item 13?
Yes. Let me understand this.
If you can say your name for the record, please.
Lane,
There's no line.
Oh, hold on.
so you guys, you would let, on the second scenario, you would let developers put all this money in to a development, but at the end of the day, you're not sure if they're gonna get water or not? Yes or no?
This is public comment, and if the mayor is okay with me responding to public comment versus public question, could you ask all your questions, and I'll respond as soon as you're done?
I guess my comment would be, I don't think any developer would develop in Livingston if they went through all the entitled process and at the end of the day, not be able to access that water.
Mr. Mayor, is it okay if I respond? Yes, it has been shown that there is a chilling effect. Most developers don't want to develop if they don't know what's going to happen.
You just
But-
stop development in Livingston.
But at least the developers have that option available to them.
And do you believe that they would take that option? There you go.
Thank you. Is there any additional comments in the chamber in regards to this item? Seeing none, bringing it back to the dais at 8:14. So, in a sense, that is why we are having this conversation, because, we have to look at all the options and we have to present all the different scenarios, good, bad, and ugly, because that's the way it is. Because if we don't present all the different scenarios, then, what if? What if we didn't talk about that scenario? So we're just trying to be.
So, another question, can I ask a question? What's going on with
Hold on 1 second. So let me ask, because normally, legally, we only are allowed to allow the same person to speak once, but if it's okay with the council, then I have to open it again, and then I have to open it to everybody else, which I don't mind.
That's, you get to make that decision, you make the big bucks.
Yes, if you want to come back to the podium, please.
what is happening with, well, 8A? How soon will that be online?
And do you have any other questions or comments? We just need to get them all at once so we can close public comment and then be able to respond.
I'm just
Okay,
a question.
thank you.
I have to phrase it as a,
No, if I may, Mayor. So what it is during public comment, everybody from the public is allowed to comment. So you come up, you ask any questions or comments that you need, and then you sit down, let the next person come up, sit down, let the next person come up. And then once that process is done, then it's closed, then it's brought back up here, and then you can get responses to the comments and
Okay.
everything else.
Thank
So I'm not trying to avoid your questions, we're just trying to follow the right process.
sure, I understand.
Thank you. Is there additional comments in the chamber?
Renee Mendonça. Being part of the Planning Commission, we are in the triple digits behind on providing housing and that the state is requiring. As you know, we turned in our annual housing report. How are we going to be able to fix this? You know, we've achieved a stop on the speed train. We're looking at the future. We're trying to get our general plan together. How do we stop this?
Thank you. Is there any additional comments or questions in the chamber? Is there anyone on the phone? Seeing none, bringing it back to the dais at 8:17. So we do have a couple of questions if somebody wants to address one first.
Yeah, one of the questions was how much longer till completion of well 8A? Do we have an idea of when that estimated completion date is?
If you, can you come up to the mic, please?
I'm Nick from the city engineer's office. I would anticipate probably about 6 months or so. I can ask for an update from the contractor for more accurate information as far as lead times with the current equipment that's remaining for the project.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
question for Nick or whoever wants from engineer's office. Go ahead, I'm putting you in the hot seat for a second. When you say 6 months, is that from adding the treatment and certification, or what, just, or is that 6 months? And I know I'm not gonna hold you to the exact hour, but is that to the final certification where pumps come on, or is that to a certain level?
It depends on how construction progresses throughout the project, but potentially for the well to be online at that point.
Okay, so approximately.
Sure, Mark.
Come on, Mario. I'll put the,
I'll start my day back with a bang.
there you go. So let me go through, okay. Currently, we have a well and we have to do testing
Right.
for whatever. And I believe the next step is gonna be, based on what the direction was already been given, is we're looking for treatment, not another well somewhere.
Yeah,
And
the
then
6 months would not include the treatment. It's just the well being completed and producing water.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand, without the treatment, even if it's certified, we can't bring the well online, correct?
You may be able to, yeah. there's-
Depending on the MCLs?
It would be blended on the short term. And we kind of provided the council some information on that. But, yeah, it would be able to be brought online by blending with the
Right.
existing well 8.
And I know this is based on manufacturers and all those folks we get. How long, or whoever wants to answer, before we get treatment vessels on and certified and moved on? How long will that take?
For the arsenic?
Yes.
For the arsenic? 2 years, couple of years,
So 2 years. I just wanted everybody to understand.
yeah.
I kind of knew the dates.
Right.
But I wanted to make sure that everybody understands.
Yeah, and it wasn't a presentation
Yeah, I know.
last council meeting.
I know the question was asked and it was said 6 months. I wanted to clarify that.
It's just the
It's
well
a certain-
itself.
It's up to a
Yes.
certain point, not
Yes.
the completion. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Mario.
You
Thank
bet.
Mr. Mayor.
Mario, can you stay up there for just a second?
Council, is there any additional questions?
I wanted to.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I know we had one more comment or question from Ms. Renee on what's being done. Can you give a high altitude overview on what we've been doing, Mario, what the city has been doing? We got well 18, well 19 planned, well 18
Right.
planned and TCP projects and
Yeah, I'll try to be brief because there's a lot of history.
components.
Right. But the city is proceeding with TCP treatment for some of the existing wells, looking at bringing 8A online and 2 other wells online. So all of that's in the works. There have been applications to the state for all these facilities. There have been some changes from the state not too long ago. So those are being revisited. But there's a lot of activity on that.
Mayor, if I could add some more context as well, and I think this was valuable to both public comments as well. I think the council, even though it was on the consent calendar item, I think the council should be commended for their efforts with respect to the agenda item that utilized its city funding to expedite the arsenic treatment at well 8A, as well as the construction of new well 18. The state had previously maybe had some consideration that it would be able to fund the well 8A arsenic treatment, as well as previously talked about well 18. But in the latest communications with them, they're not necessarily open to that. It would add additional time potentially for the arsenic treatment. So the council tonight approved the use of its own city funding, over $5 million, I believe. I don't have the exact number in front of me, of its own funding to move forward on these projects. So that's the construction of well 18 and then the arsenic treatment at well 8A. So with those 2 items, I think the council's made a pretty strong statement to the community that it's using its own funding to move forward on these projects, which is really important and really important to note. That agenda item is in tonight's agenda backup. The council already took that item up and approved it, but there's a lot more detail on there as to what the council's allocated from its own funding to get those projects moving.
Thank you. Council? So actually, just to piggyback on what Mr. Lopez said, I believe the amount is $5.3 million that are being invested in some of those water projects. So we are working towards it, and I know there's going to be other items coming back, another item coming back to the council to see how the council wants to move forward. But yes, there's a lot of work being done. Unfortunately, not many people attend meetings and they're not updated on, because maybe, there's different things coming up at every meeting, but fortunately, there's work being done. Council? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And in fact, Ms. Renee, I want to thank you again for your comment regarding the regional housing needs assessment and housing. That triggered a reminder for me that with regards to if we were to go through a lottery or allocation process, housing comes first. So that means that all the housing needs have to be addressed before you can go on to commercial or industrial or anything else like that. Because we have not met our arenas, we're apparently short, and we need to meet our housing element. So housing comes first where water is concerned. So if we're inclined to have to stop because we don't have any until these new wells and the infrastructure come online, Technically, you're supposed to stop with the commercial, industrial, and then housing is last, then ADUs are the very, very last, that's accessory dwelling units. But that's the hierarchy for that process. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that.
I reminded him of that.
Thank you.
I was just joking.
Are you ready to entertain a motion?
Well, if there's no more questions, if there's any more discussion, so we do have, I think we have a couple of options, unless you have a specific option in mind. We
Mr.
have-
Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
I would make the motion to approve option 1, development of the ad hoc comprised of staff that would make recommendation. Item number 1, option 1.
That was a ad hoc committee?
Yes.
And do you want to make that motion first and
Can you,
then decide who's on the ad hoc
Mike?
afterwards?
Would that be coming back, or we can, because we don't have a full council right now.
I'm so sorry. So your option is to say, yes, I'd like to explore the ad hoc option when the full council comes back at the next meeting.
Okay.
So we just place it on the agenda for that to appoint the ad hoc.
Okay, I will amend my motion to take option 1 and to bring back the item with the full council to appoint the ad hoc committee.
So we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? I'll go ahead and second that. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Soto?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Semer?
Yes.
Mayor Moran?
Yes.
Motion failed by a vote of 2-1.
Pardon me, this is actually an unusual circumstance because it's not a resolution. It's now a majority of the
Supermajority.
quorum
Okay.
present. So it technically passed, but because it's going to be on the agenda for the next council, the full council can take action as appropriate at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Next, we have council direction on future agenda items.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
I understand we already voted, but I don't think that we quite understood, or the applicant didn't have the ample opportunity to address the council on their administrative error in the way the way the permit was acquired for the park. I would request that we bring this item back for further discussion, let the applicant explain what happened.
Okay, anybody else?
For further agenda items?
Yes, correct.
So in addition to the item coming back, I know that there was we voted on the ad hoc, but I'd like to see certain topics covered in this. I don't fully appreciate, I guess that's the lack of a better word, the ad hoc component where the council is going to be able to select who's on the committee, because I believe that's been the problem. This whole over-the-counter type building permit application, it's just a way that has been presented, and can't say all staff or even our public may understand that those were types of deals that were being brought forward and approved by council members without going through process. And that has been an ongoing problem with development in Livingston. So there are other solutions that should be brought forward, so a whole discussion. I know it's coming back, but I don't want to approve an ad hoc, which I didn't, but it really needs to be considered with more of an expertise on what's going on with development. We just can't nonchalantly appoint people to this committee if this is the way of the council. I'm not going to be voting on that. Or I'll voice my opinion on it because what I've seen in the past and what has not been working and what our engineering, our building, the whole process has been a mess. And we're trying to fix it. There's many components that fall into place. Here's the general plan. Where's those, a lot of things fall into place with development in Livingston, and it's a mess. And it's gotten to this point where we're struggling. We're not even struggling right now, we're just drowning, and we don't even have water. So this really needs to be addressed in a larger scale than just appointing people to the ad hoc, because we've seen in the past how we've appointed people and it's really been bad for the city of Livingston. We can't continue to do that. We can't continue to say yes to this building permit and not be transparent about the actions that are happening. So with that being said, there are other solutions that can happen. Having an ad hoc and appointing people that are just going to favor certain developers or certain projects or just fall in line. I can't see that because we need to fix the underlying issue of what has been happening in the city. So in addition to this discussion that we're going to have in the next council meeting, it needs to have a lot more background knowledge. Even our public comes forward with some of these items because they know and they've been used to some of the past practices that we definitely need to get rid of, and they cannot come back because that's our problem. We're not fixing it, we're just keep adding and compiling more issues. It's not just the water thing.
All right, and for myself, probably I would just like to ask a city manager to potentially consider coming back with some water. I know that this discussion has been brought to the council. I'm just not sure what the update has been in regards to water conservation efforts. We're almost over the summer, but then again, we're a city that doesn't have enough water. So, I know that in the past there has been conversations about water conservation. It's like, well, conserving water at one home is just a drop in the bucket. But then again, that's how we get things. That's how we get the bucket filled with little drops. But anyway, so and I think that goes along the way with some of the conversations we've been having, and potentially consider some educational efforts for our community and see potentially how other ways we can conserve water, or maybe we can come back with some ideas, and then the council can provide some ideas, and the community can provide some additional input and so on. So, but in the future, I would like to see something come to us, a presentation of some kind, or in regards to water conservation efforts. And
Excuse me, one more thing.
yes, go ahead.
So in addition to conservation is really reclaiming the water. So some ideas like that is the purple pipeline and actually going out and finding other ways, because we know City of Livingston can conserve water. We did it. The presentation gave us where, I think it was 2014, where an effort was made citywide to conserve water, and we can do it. But we need to find smarter ways to use our water instead of using it for, I know that a couple months or maybe a year ago, we got a new machine that percolated water and helped us with the groundwater. So just different ideas. So in addition to conserving, because we know we can do it, is reclaiming our water and looking into ideas such as the purple pipeline so that we can irrigate land surfaces.
All right, and so with that, we have a final announcement by our legal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to complete my closed session announcement. There was authorization for litigation against the county to preserve fire station services, and that concludes my announcement. Thank you.
Thank you. So meeting is adjourned at 8:36.